What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Full Court Talk. This is the 30th podcast that we have. And CJ, that is a beautiful shirt, my man.
Hey, shout out SC30.
I
What's
Please
up,
explain,
Myles?
Spence.
what's up? What's up,
Welcome
Spencer?
back,
How you doing,
man.
man?
Good.
I need the unsea juice because I see CJ in that garbage. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, please explain
Man.
it, Spence.
So, as you guys all know, we had that little bet. Warriors win. CJ has to wear a shirt. Lakers win. I had to say something I didn't want to say. But, you know, something happened that's good. The Warriors get the dub. A real nice dub.
Yeah,
It was a good game up until the first half. First half was okay, but then the second half, Warriors kicked in new gear, got that dub. It was great. But
yeah,
talking about the topics today. So it was a really special episode. This will probably come out on the 26th. I'm gonna put it up. But the first topic we're gonna talk about is, are the Cavaliers and the Knicks playoff contenders this season, which sounds insane to say. Um, have your finals predictions changed throughout the first portion of the season? Is Jokic a legit contender for MVP? And since this is coming out on the 26th, we wanted to remember Kobe. As we all know, this is the anniversary of his death. And we just want to talk about it and kind of remember him in the best way possible. Just talking about all the memories that we have of him. And we'll get into those questions when we get to them. But the first topic. So the Cavaliers and the Knicks, two teams we did not see as playoff contenders coming into the season. What do you guys think of them so far?
yeah. Good.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's crazy. They've both come out the gate firing, especially this past week. Cleveland beating the Nets twice.
man, crazy.
Honestly, I was looking at the standings today, and I would give maybe one of them a chance, just because I think obviously Miami's been ravaged with injuries. They're going to make it in. I think Toronto will make it in also. And if I had to give that last spot to someone, I'd honestly give it to the Hawks because they have a combination of young talent and vets, whereas the Knicks are just a bunch of young, scrappy guys. Kind of with the Cavs too, except I know Drummond's a vet, but he doesn't really have playoff experience like that.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's honestly nice to see just more competitive teams in both conferences. Um, I know a bunch of Kyrie and Harden and KD haters are enjoying the past week, so there's that.
yeah. For me personally, it's crazy. Like the Knicks, right? When you think of the Knicks now, they're like a joke. Nobody wants to go there. They're like some Laker fans who believe that they're gonna get every free agent, right? But nobody prominent has come to them. But I mean, I want to start off with the Cavs because they started out the season really good. They started 4-1. They beat quality teams, and most notably, the Nets in recent days, right? Where Colin Sexton dropped 42, and it's just a testament to how hard him and Garland have been working. And him and Garland are on the rise. Like they're one of the best backcourt in the NBA, in my opinion. And so, if I did want to give a legitimate chance to one of these teams making the playoffs, I would have to choose the Cavs. Just put them in there. But I agree with Myles. Unfortunately, none of these teams are going to make the playoffs right now. It just looks good, especially with the way that the Cavs. I feel like that trade in the beginning, I wasn't a fan of it because the last podcast, me and Spence, we discussed that, man. The Cavs picked up another big, and they already had so much in that position. But Jared Allen, he's looking like he belongs with the Cavs. He's playing really well. He looks comfortable. Andre Drummond, he was a consistent double threat, getting 20 boards a game. But right now, his game is slowing down. And I think obviously that's because of, Jared Allen getting incorporated to the lineup. But the Cavs, I would say they look better than the Knicks. But, the Knicks, on the other hand, they're eighth in the East right now. They've had some quality wins, over the Jazz, the Warriors, and most notably the 30-point blowout against the Celtics. that was crazy. You know what I mean? Like we had to check back on the score, like 101 or like 105 to 75. Like that was insane. You know what I mean? But Julius Randle, I want to touch base on him. Like he looks like an MIP candidate. He
Yeah.
looks good. You know what I mean? And he's arguably the most consistent player on the Knicks. And RJ Barrett, my guy, Duke, but he's been inconsistent, up and down. He'll put up 20 piece and then he'll go to like a single digit. And so it's kind of disappointing because, he has so much talent there. But I mean, I want to say this, like Tibbs looks like exactly what they needed. He has a bad reputation of overplaying guys, but this Knicks team, like they're scrappy on defense and they look good when they're defending and they're all communicating. Like they look like they could make the playoffs, but as Myles said, Miami, Toronto, the Hawks, even they have a better chance. But right now, it just looks good because it looks good for the NBA. East is notably weak, but it looks like a lot of teams are competing, so that's good in my book.
Yeah, and I think with the Cavs, like the duo of Colin Sexton and Darius Garland is really impressive so far. Darius
Yeah.
Garland has kind of like taken his game to another level because I know last year he was kind of the bottom. He wasn't really used as much. But I think something to think about is that they're going to get rid of Drummond at some point this season. They're not going to hold on to him.
I agree.
I would be shocked if they had him towards the end of the season unless they just can't get any kind of offer they like.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, trading for Jared Allen was just a no-brainer. Giving up Dante Exum for Jared Allen, essentially, pretty easy trade. And Jared Allen is a guy that you can slide right next to Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. That's a good trio. That's a good young trio to have. But in terms of them getting into the playoffs, I don't think they can keep up this kind of play, especially with the injury history that has Darius Garland. I think he's been getting injured a lot. That's kind of what derailed him his first season. Then you add in COVID, and pretty sure a lot of teams are going to start dealing with that now. So I don't think they'll make it this season, but definitely in the coming years, I think they're going to be something to deal with. The Knicks have been really impressive. I think I saw that they're the number one defense in the NBA. They've been insane. Tibbs has them playing impressively on defense. And Julius Randle is averaging 22, 11, and 6. He's been insane. Because we saw him last year and we thought, he's kind of a bust now. Because he was developing all these bad habits and it looked tough for him. This season, he looks like he came back really strong. Maybe it's his contract year and he's just trying to show out, but he looks good. RJ Barrett, even though he's averaging 18 a night, but he's also shooting like 41%. So he's very inconsistent, like CJ said. But I think even then, I could see them sneaking into the playoffs just off of defense alone. But offensively, they need a lot of help. They can't just rely on Julius Randle every night. But we'll see what happens with them. I think obviously none of them are going to compete for a championship. I think if we had to choose one, the Cavs are going to be there sooner. Knicks just don't have the pieces. They're not young enough, and every time they get a young guy, usually doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Quick thing, sorry, a quick thing, but unrelated. I saw a rumor that the Nets are trying to shop for JaVale McGee, so that might
saw that too.
Cavs and
yeah.
I mean, we've also seen Drummond getting shopped to the Knicks too. They're just looking for bigs, I guess.
What I wanted to say was, for the Knicks, like, I don't understand why Dennis Smith Jr. doesn't get any playing time. Like, he's a good young guard. Like,
I don't know.
I don't know what Tibbs' track record with D Rose. Obviously, Dennis Smith Jr. is not D Rose, but I would assume that he would, play him and like utilize him. But he got Alfred Payne, who's playing pretty good. But I think Dennis Smith Jr. like he just needs a chance. Like I understand like he had his struggles in the coming years, but I just feel like he can help the team. He's a young, bouncy, explosive guard. And I'm pretty sure his shot's gotten better too, but we don't see him see the floor. It's kind of crazy to me. And for the Cavaliers, this is probably one of their better starts since LeBron has left. So, yeah, but Dennis Smith Jr. is one that came into mind because when Spence put up the topics, obviously, we had to do our research on them, but Like seeing Dennis Smith Jr. doesn't get any type of playing time was just crazy to me because I feel like he deserved. He's still young. Him
Same
and
thing with
Tatum are the same age.
Ntilikina too. Ntilikina
Yeah,
doesn't see the floor at all, and you think he would fit really well within that Tibbs system off of defense, but
yeah,
they've essentially given up on their young guards already, so it's a great
yeah,
sign for the Knicks.
yeah. Right.
And great Tibbs style to not use his depth either.
I think
Exactly.
Tight
he
ass
plays like
rotation.
7 or 8 deep.
Yeah.
It's kind of insane. That's not a great recipe, but
Yeah,
I don't know, man. Especially in a year where you don't know who's gonna sit out on a day-to-day basis. You
yeah,
would think playing deep into your bench like a lot of these other teams do, but I mean, they're pretty successful so far, so maybe that's just
yeah.
what they want to do. But have your guys' finals predictions changed throughout the beginning of the season?
Go ahead, CJ.
I would say no. I still got the Lakers and the Nets. In light of the recent struggles, what I want people to understand is the regular season is just the regular season. That's very hypocritical for me to say because I text Myles when the Lakers are struggling tough. So, but at the end of the day, the regular season is just the regular season. And we already know the Lakers are battle tested. So it doesn't matter what seed they get. When it comes time for the postseason, I know they'll be locked in. It's just the Nets it's more concerning. It's their first year together. But at the same time, like having those three guys, you can not count them out, especially in the Eastern Conference. If it was a Western Conference, yeah, I'd understand. But Eastern Conference, we did say that teams are competing and making it more challenging. But when it comes time to win, I think the Nets come out on top. I don't see anybody checking them. Miami's probably the closest. Maybe Boston, but other than that, like I just don't see anybody like toppling them over to get to the Eastern Conference finals and going to the finals. So I still have the Lakers and the Nets. And, in light of all the jokes, I still have Lakers in 6. That's how I see it. Um, you know, I'm still not counting Kyrie to be healthy. And you never know with him. He might go on a 2-month trip by himself going somewhere, unfortunately. I don't want to see that, but just his health and his state of mind, I don't know. James and KD, like, man, you can count on them for sure, but I don't know if those two can do it by themselves against the Lakers. But yeah, I still have Lakers and Nets.
As much as I want to be spicy and say it did change, no, it hasn't changed for me either because I also had the Lakers and the Nets.
Yeah.
And honestly, no bias at all. I think the West is pretty wrapped up. It's the Lakers unless the Clippers can make another move or Denver can become relevant again. It all depends on the East and the Nets because I had them making the finals before the season, and even more so now with Harden. I know they traded away all of their depth. They're like a more top-heavy version of the Kevin Durant Warriors. But when you look at it just overall, you really only need two of three of those dudes to be themselves, and you have a chance to win every single night. And they can all close games too.
Yeah.
The only really big threats I see to them are teams that play big. So the Sixers and the Heat, because Adebayo and of course Embiid are going to give them huge problems. DeAndre Jordan isn't what he used to be. Even if the Nets can get JaVale McGee, I mean, it's just another body to throw at them. But if those two teams can control tempo versus the Nets, then it'll be pretty ugly for Brooklyn. But other than that, because I mean, it's still a gauntlet in the East. You still got the Celtics, you still got the Bucks, even the Pacers are a sleeper.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like CJ said, Lakers in 6, hopefully, barring any injuries or anything crazy in the West.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Yeah, like you just said, the West is pretty much wrapped up. I'm going with the Lakers. I can't really see any other team competing with them. The Jazz look really good so far. They hold the best record in the NBA so far, but the Jazz are also the team that blew a 3-1 lead, and it's tough. And I don't think they have the experience to get past other teams like the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nuggets even. So the West is locked up, but the East, I'm gonna switch it up because I haven't been. The Nets haven't been as good, but obviously they're not gonna be as good as they will be. But defensively, there's a lot of questions. Um, Kyrie doesn't play defense. James Harden doesn't play defense. DeAndre Jordan's really old. Joe Harris doesn't play defense. That entire team just doesn't play defense, other than Kevin Durant, I would say. Kevin Durant is a good defender now. But when you look at that team top to bottom, defensively, they have a lot of struggles. And you can't get into a shootout every night and expect to win the game. You have those clutch guys, but they're not always going to come out clutch when you need them. And especially when you get into the playoffs, if you don't have a defense, you're not going to get far. Look at the Lakers last year with AD, defensive stopper, even LeBron too. The Warriors had Iguodala. They had Klay Thompson. You need those defensive guys that can key in on those key moments. I just don't see the Nets having that guy. I think I'm going with the Sixers. Joel Embiid looks amazing. I would like Ben Simmons to be a lot more aggressive because I think he's been passive. But they look like a totally different team. They're shooting the three finally. They're playing well. It looks like they're having fun, which has been something that the Sixers never do. They just kind of go out there and get business done. But this is a good Sixers team, and a Lakers-Sixers matchup would be really interesting. With the similarities between LeBron and Simmons, similarities between AD and Joel Embiid, that'd be a good matchup. I would love to see that, but I'm still going Lakers in 6, man. I'm going with you guys this time because Lakers just look dominant. They have such a deep roster, and I don't think anyone's going to be able to compete with that.
If you want to hop the bandwagon, Spencer, we will
No.
allow it 100%. Don't worry. You're good.
Don't get this twisted, guys. Don't get it twisted.
I'm going with the even like the Warriors. They look bad, so I'm not stupid. I'm not gonna pick the Warriors, but I'll choose the Lakers this time.
Like at least they're a functional NBA team now.
Depends.
Like they look so different from the first. Like from the first 2 games, literally they look like a G League team. But now they're functional. Now I see them as a scrappy 8 seed.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to face the Warriors in the playoffs because going up against Steph and Draymond obviously takes it to another level. Steph is usually insanely good in the playoffs, but I mean, the other guys have to come along. Wiggins is doing his thing. Kelly Oubre does his thing when he wants to. It seems like. It's a we'll see kind of thing. Every night is different with these guys.
Yeah.
But, going on to the next one. Is Nikola Jokic a legitimate contender for MVP? So, I think CJ brought this up to me, and I was like, yeah, definitely. Because I think Jokic has so much of what you want in a modern-day big. Can shoot the three, can pass the ball, can handle the ball, and essentially he acts as your point guard. Jamal Murray plays point guard, but he doesn't really do anything other than score. I mean, if you look at the averages, 26 points per game, 12 rebounds, 9.6 assists, averaging 1.9 steals. He's got good numbers. He's got the numbers to be an MVP. The only thing I think he's missing is that narrative. Every MVP has a narrative. Giannis had his narrative the last 2 years. LeBron's always had that narrative of never getting votes. That's why he doesn't get votes anymore. Steph has the narrative. Every MVP has a narrative. Jokic just doesn't have that. He flies under the radar, kind of just does his own thing, keeps his head down. So he doesn't have that narrative, which I think the media runs with and kind of campaigns for. Because, I mean, the media votes for it, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough to see him getting the MVP award just because he doesn't have that media backing him up, other than probably the Denver news station, which is tough for him because I think he's putting up amazing numbers on a Denver team that's kind of struggled throughout the first part of the season. But, I think with those numbers, if he keeps it up, he deserves the MVP. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Myles.
If he keeps it up and if they're a 5 seed or higher, I could see it because he has even less help than last year. And Murray isn't playing near what he was in the bubble, which is crazy to me. I thought Murray would pop off coming off of the bubble. Same with like Devin Booker, but they've both been pretty underwhelming.
Yeah.
Thus far. And I mean, I guess for Jokic's narrative, yeah, you're right. There is none. It's tough because I feel like the MVP is inherently biased against bigs just because their games aren't flashy.
Yeah.
Jokic doesn't play above the rim. He doesn't have those SportsCenter top 10 highlights, but he's the foundation of the team. You're right. He carries them offensively, scoring, creating for other teammates. It's tough though because like who was the last big man to win MVP?
I think it was Shaq.
I think it might have been Dirk or like Duncan.
Yeah.
One of
I was
those.
gonna say
Right.
Duncan. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also because Steve Nash stole Shaq's MVPs, but like it's. I hope he's actually in the conversation because I don't want to see Giannis in the conversation again.
No,
That's just me.
definitely not.
Yeah.
And you're right. I can't find any narrative this year. Maybe Embiid also.
Yeah. Embiid has a narrative too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me here, I want to share something with you guys. So the Nuggets are currently 5th in the West, right? So the only teams on top of them are obviously the Lakers, and you got the Clippers, and the Blazers, and the Jazz. And so all those teams are obviously quality teams. And then you're looking at what Jokic is doing for the Nuggets. So like what you guys said, he doesn't have an MVP, and I agree with that. And like, an MVP is obviously the most valuable player of the team, right? So if you take Jokic away from the Nuggets, they're not a 5 seed. I don't even think they're a playoff team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're a lottery team.
They're a lottery team. Yeah, exactly. Murray can't do it by himself. And you look at Jokic, like this guy, we used to, well, not us, but like he used to get made fun of for being overweight. You know what I mean? And he lost a lot of weight, and now he's just hooping. Like he's still slower. I mean, you can argue that he's stronger, but you see the way that he impacts the game. You know what I mean? Especially with his passing. And like Spence said, like he has all the tools that you want in a modern day big man. He can shoot, handle the ball, and he's a playmaker. You know what I mean? And so like if the NBA season were to end today, he's legitimately up there, for conversation. Him and Embiid, which is surprising because, like Myles said, like this award there's a bias to the bigs. You know what I mean? And like these two guys are bigs, and they're leading their teams. Like Spence said, like Ben Simmons is underwhelming right now, and so Embiid has had to carry a lot of the load, and so he actually looks like he's engaged and locked in, not lazy, not giving up on plays. You know how traditional Embiid was, but yeah. So those two guys, they're up there if the season were to end right now. But Jokic for sure, especially with what he's doing, and like you got to keep in mind the Nuggets lost some pieces too. They lost Grant, Plumlee, and Torrey Craig, and those are important guys to their rotation. And Jeremy Grant has been putting up numbers, MIP conversation, but it's just like Jokic has more of a load and responsibility to carry. And I think he's, putting up the numbers to support that cause. I just hope that at the end of the season, I mean, he can keep it up. I know they won't be like out of the playoffs. I know they'll be in top 8 for sure, but it's just, I think he deserves some recognition for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, and going back to Jamal Murray, he's been struggling. He'll drop them 30 pieces, but then he'll go and drop like 10 points with like 3 for 20 shooting. He's been really bad. And it kind of just adds to Jokic's claim to be MVP. He's playing with a lot of teammates that are struggling. Michael Porter Jr. didn't play for like 6-7 games because he was down with COVID. So the Nuggets aren't in a great position at that moment. They're 9-7, 10-7, something like that. And they're sitting at that 5th seed when we thought they would be a lot better. And if they can keep it up and they can get a little better, I think he should deserve the MVP. He's been really good. But like we said, that narrative is a tough thing to overcome. Even Steph has a narrative already. He needs to get a narrative somehow.
Yeah.
But On to the second half of our podcast.
I can finally
CJ.
take the shirt off.
Yep.
Wardrobe
But
change, guys.
as we all know, um, back on January 26th, Kobe passed away in a helicopter crash. And it was arguably one of the darkest days in NBA history. A lot of people,
More like it.
that's a better shirt,
Fire.
better
Thank
shirt.
you.
But it was one of the most sad days that I can even remember. And so instead of being sad and talking about like the bad parts of it, let's start with the happy parts. What's your guys' earliest memory of Kobe?
Myles, you go ahead.
It's funny because my earliest memory was him and Shaq losing to the Pistons in the finals, and I don't know how it was growing up for you guys, but for me, I like before I could actually consume sports in an intellectual manner. I just rooted for the teams who I was good with in video games. So
Okay.
I think it was NBA 2K like 4 or 5 at the time. I was good with the Pistons, so I was rooting for the Pistons. And then funny thing, like 2 years later, I became a Kobe fan, which in turn made me a Laker fan. So that's my first memory. And probably the one after that would be just the whole 05-06 season for Kobe. You could argue that was his best statistical season of his career, but he was taking heat from the media and off the court, and he just went off on everyone on the court every single night. So that was just the funnest thing to see.
Yeah. Honestly, for me, well, a lot of people don't know this, but I was born in the Philippines. And, one thing that means so much to Filipinos is basketball. I mean, Filipinos, it's a religion almost to play basketball. And so, like, when I was in the Philippines, like growing up, so I was born in 95. And obviously, I didn't like comprehend basketball until like, I knew what was going on around me in terms of watching all that stuff. So by that time, MJ's Bulls were close to their end, and I understand that there was a time where the Spurs took over for a little bit, but you know, it wasn't long until Froby and Shaq, took over. And I remember for me, before I went here to the Philippines, I was watching the Lakers win their first chip, and also, Duke winning that 0-1 championship, which is why I'm a fan of both teams, because in the Philippines, it's different from how it was back then. Now there's more channels you can watch sports with, but back then you can only watch the teams that were good. So they were only showing the Lakers for the NBA, and for college it was only Duke because they were dominant at that time. So that is how I became a fan. But my earliest memory of him was that for sure. Like I would say after I saw them win their first championship together, um, I rewatched the game where Kobe took over with a sprained ankle against the Pacers. Like that was just thinking back, like man, that was so crazy what he did. With Shaq out, fouling out, and that picture where he's just like telling everybody to calm down. Like that's probably like my favorite, honestly, or earliest memory. So, yeah.
And for me, like I wasn't into watching basketball when I was younger. I played a
Yeah.
lot more basketball, so my earliest memory of Kobe was the 81-point game. I didn't watch a ton of basketball back then, but I remember watching that game, and it was one of the most insane games I've ever watched. Um, if you score more than the opposing lineup like the starting lineup, like that's kind of insane. But
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many memories of Kobe, and this is probably the one that stuck out to me the most in terms of the earliest, at least. But what are your top 5 favorite moments of Kobe?
Man, that's tough. You got a list ready, Miles?
I was gonna go off the dome. I mean, I had like a
Yeah.
couple in the chamber. Uh, I guess we'll go starting at 5. I think I'll go with the buzzer beater on the Suns that one year.
Yeah.
That was when he had the iconic pulled his jersey. Woo! You know.
Yeah.
They ended up losing the series, but it's all good because that moment was still very iconic to me. You even had the little fake Jordan fist pump he had. It was crazy. Like for a game winner to come off a jump ball like that in half court.
Yeah.
Like what? Who does that?
Shout out Smush Parker, man, the greatest point guard ever.
Yeah. Shout out him, Chris Mim, all those dudes.
Let's see. For me, well, I mean, I'll go with my whole list. So, I mean, going on number 5, I'll say, his final game, 60-point game. No disrespect, man. Actually, what I'll do disrespect.
Oh, dude.
I was not watching the 73-9 Warriors. Guess what I was watching that night?
The last game.
I
his
last game, man. So that's my number 5. Number 4 is just the 5th championship ring. Man, that day I was at Great Mall with one of my good friends. Obviously we were still in high school. We were not driving. It's our freshman year. I was like, dude, we have to get home before the game starts, and we like booked it home from Great Mall, taking the light rail, taking the bus cause he lived kind of far. And, we ended up going back to my place and watching it. It's just, that iconic pose where he went on the table, confetti going down, like, man, oh man, like can't forget that. Like Myles said, the game winner against the Suns. I'll never forget that game winner against the Suns. That's probably also one of my earliest memories of him. And then the 81 points. Like, for some reason, I feel like Kobe loves the Raptors, dude. He's hit a game winner on them, 81 points. Like, I just have a feeling that he loves playing against the Raptors, And my last one. For number 1, this is my absolute favorite moment because this happened when I first moved here from the Philippines, was when the Lakers played against the Timberwolves and Kobe had that reverse dunk baseline when he sucked the gravity out the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it was just, back then it was just my parents and I had no brothers or sisters yet. We were just in one room and I remember watching that game. One baseline, I was like, dude, what is he doing? And then he just reversed it and punched it. I was like, oh my God, And so like, that dunk is probably my favorite Kobe dunk of all time, man. And, Kevin Harlan, was it Kevin Harlan that called that game?
Yeah, it was Kevin Harlan.
Yeah, like, iconic voice, perfect for the moment, dude. Like, that was so crazy to me. But yeah, those are my top 5. It was hard to pick, though.
Yeah,
There's a lot.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
He had a lot of moments.
Yeah. Oh my God.
For me, number 5 was the free throws after he tore his Achilles. That was one of the most, like, it just showed the grit and determination that he had. Like, and he had like no pain in his face, no grimace, just took the free throws and walked off. It was just like, it was kind of crazy, and I was watching him because I was against the Warriors, but it just showed that no matter what, he gave his all. And I think that's like kind of what you take away from him. But number 4 was the alley-oop, man, to Shaq on the Blazers.
Oh yeah.
I can always just remember just Shaq pointing and running, man. That was one of the funniest, just like greatest celebrations.
Yeah.
And then the third one, his first one without Shaq. I think that was kind of powerful for him because like that was the one thing that kind of like was gone against him, right? He couldn't win without Shaq. Then he wins 2 back-to-back without him on the Magic and then against the Celtics too. Like going to Game 7, nothing better.
Yep.
And then the farewell game. I mean, bro, it's such a Kobe way to go out, dropping 60.
Yeah.
And it's just insane because like he goes on to win the game. It's just insane. And obviously dropping anyone, that's got to be number 1 for me. Mm-hmm. That's just one of the most insane like accomplishments ever in the NBA.
Yeah. Disregard the field goal percentage though. We won't go there.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
No, man, he's the greatest gunslinger there is, man. He didn't care if he was 0 for 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Agreed.
Exactly.
Just to continue my list.
Yeah.
It's very similar to Spencer's. 4, I'm just gonna combine the '09 chip and the 2010 chip, just because, like Spencer said, '09 was kind of his validation, first one without Shaq, and then turn around 2010, he has one more than Shaq, and he avenges the loss to the Celtics in '08. And honestly, that's a crazy like 3-year span, because in the '07, '08 season, he was demanding a trade. Like he was very adamant about it. He would like go to the media and say, "Yeah, I don't want to be here. Trade me." And then they went to grab Gasol, and then we know the rest. I wish they could have gotten that his sixth in 2011.
Oh yeah,
That series against the Mavericks still haunts me,
same.
and just that whole finals, because at the time I hated LeBron, and then of course the Mavs swept the Lakers, so I'm like, dude, who do I root for? There's no one to root for here. So yeah, that's my 4. Number 3 for me is the 2012-2013 season, just because that's the most vivid memory of Kobe that comes to my head. I was grown enough by then to watch pretty regularly, and it was kind of like the '06 season to me, where he did anything and everything to win. He had good teammates, but the chemistry wasn't there, system wasn't there. They had D'Antoni at the time.
Yep.
And he literally gave his body to fight for a playoff spot for them. And also, yeah, to add on, Spencer mentioned making the free throws with the torn Achilles. I mean, like the way he described it was walking on a calf.
Yep.
I would call for someone to like let me lean on him, you know?
Yeah.
This dude actually just was like, no, let me shoot these first, and he walked off like a boss. And then 2 is '81, and my favorite moment is the last game, just because the whole narrative behind it. He was pretty bad that entire season. He started off the game 0 for 5, and we were like, oh my God, is this how it's gonna be for his last game? Like I was really scared for a moment there. I'm like, oh God, he's gonna go like 10 for 40.
Yeah.
But then he got hot. He kept shooting. Shout out to the Jazz for not playing that hard, I guess.
No doubles, nothing.
Yeah,
No, they let him go.
because they had actually been like knocked off from the playoffs moments
Yeah.
before, so
Yeah.
that helped. Shout
Yeah.
out to the refs for not calling moving screens,
Yep.
and like we just got a moment to remember forever. It was nice to see the real Kobe Bryant after 2-3 years of him not being himself.
Yeah.
So that's really the lasting moment for me.
Yeah, and I think like the free throws were one of the most insane things, you know. But going back to his last game, to get like go out on 60 points, being the oldest person to ever score 60 points, it's insane. And it's a story beginning for sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, I never want to talk about greatest of all time on this podcast, but where do you rank him on the GOAT conversation?
You know what? Let me go first. Sorry, guys. You know, technical difficulties again, but
You're good.
In my non-biased opinion, I have him as the greatest for me. You know, for me. Obviously, you know, MJ, Bron, Kobe. Those are the 3 guys usually what you think about when you think of the greatest of all time to play the game. And so, like, for me, I just think it's Kobe, just because like he took what Mike did and he doubled that. He put his own flavor to it, and I feel like he did it well, did it better. You know what I mean? I would argue that if he didn't have the injuries that he did, he probably would have had more consistent seasons, because Kobe was able to play through a lot of things. He didn't want to slow down. You know, Mike, I mean, obviously I was alive in 95, but from that year, 84 to 95, I don't think that he's gotten injured much since his like rookie season, you know. And Kobe had to deal with a lot, fingers, knees, like shoulder, you name it, he dealt with it. And I feel like if he was able to stay generally healthy as Mike did, he probably would have surpassed them in terms of like ships and like accolades. But um, you know, it's just me as a Lakers fan, just this is my God. You know what I mean? Like, obviously LeBron can impact the game in multiple ways, but as I was texting Myles the other day, and I was telling you, Spence, like you got Drew Holiday guarding and locking up LeBron. Are you kidding me, dude? Like, I'm sure he would have given Kobe troubles, but 0506 Kobe? Yeah, I don't think so. And it's unfair because LeBron is up there in age. I'm pretty sure his younger self would have punished this Drew Holiday. But it's just I feel like at this age, Kobe would have crushed him, one on one. And so like it's just what I've seen and how spoiled I was to be a Lakers fan, to be a Kobe fan. It just has me ranking him, then MJ, then LeBron. Yeah.
This one was tough for me because it's hard to compare, one, just players, and then two, eras.
Yeah.
You have, for me at least, my top five is like pretty chalk, pretty typical. I actually have LeBron first. I'll save that for a different episode. But I have Bron, I have MJ, I have Kareem, and I have Bill Russell. I have Magic. So the highest I can put Kobe is 6. I put him over Duncan because they have the same amount of rings, but Duncan had more stability. I mean, he had the same exact head coach for his whole career.
Yeah.
He had David Robinson when he came into the league, and then later on he picked up Ginobili and Parker. So that matters. That's actually a reason why I put LeBron over MJ, just because like situation, like LeBron could win with 3 different supporting casts and 3 coaches. So that's why I put Kobe over Duncan. And then Larry Bird is who I had a tough time putting him over, just because it was really him and Magic who dominated the decade. And it was hard because Bird has pretty much played with Hall of Famers his whole time too. He had McHale, he had Dennis Johnson, he had Parrish.
Parrish.
Yeah. So objectively, I mean, honestly, yeah, like I can't add my bias to shoot him up further. I did say after his last game, like, man, F it, he's the second best ever because Jordan's the second best, or Jordan's the best, and he's the closest thing. But somewhere in the 5 to 10 range is where I have Kobe.
For me, I rank Kobe right behind Michael Jordan, who's number 1 for me. And I mean, it's hard for me to rank a lot of these guys because I never saw Jordan play. But I saw Kobe, I saw LeBron. And that's why I don't like to have this GOAT conversation because there's no way to rank people between eras. But for me, like, there was no one more frightening than Kobe and MJ. If you were going up against them and it was a close game, most likely one of those two was going to pull out and just win the game because they could get hot at any moment. And I think the thing that separates them from everyone else is that their killer instinct was deadly.
Yes.
As deadly as LeBron's killer instinct was or is, it's not the same. You could put Kobe in any situation, he'd find a way to get out. LeBron, I feel like he gets a little too passive in those situations. And something I told CJ was that there's a reason Kobe was compared to MJ and and LeBron to Magic, because they're just 2 totally different players. LeBron obviously impacts the game in a lot more ways, but Kobe plays just such a different style. It's hard to rank them against each other because they play 2 different positions and 2 totally different play styles. But if I had to choose where I'd put him, it's above LeBron, right behind MJ. and that's probably my bias speaking because I don't like LeBron. But
Can't blame you. I can't blame you.
I mean, as a Warriors fan, I hate LeBron, but you know, it is what it is. But like that's why the GOAT conversation is such a bad conversation to have, because there's no way you can know.
Yeah.
There's no way someone can sit through every single era, dissect it, and be like, that's the person who's the best, because they're all so different. And especially now, we don't know if Kareem would stand a chance against the super athletic guys that are playing now, right? But it's just such a different era. There's too many different variables to go into this, but
yeah. Also, because like people's criterias are different.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's kind of like with the MVP, where I think I have the same definition as CJ, where like if you take them off the team, then what is the team?
Yeah.
There's just so many different variables, so many different situations. Like I know it's a cliche, but I do think that any great player can play in any era because they would have adjusted for the circumstances. Like Kareem would have had the science we have now, and like LeBron, he'd still be a tight end playing basketball. So
LeBron would arguably want to be the like best players in the older eras. Just a huge wrecking ball running into people.
Yeah.
Yep. Agreed.
But I mean, he also wouldn't have the science that we have now. That he wouldn't be spending millions of dollars on his body back then. But
facts.
Either way, like the GOAT conversation is something that there's no reason, like you can't get any further than we already have. You know.
Yeah.
Most people aren't gonna move their GOAT further down or further above because that's just who their GOAT is.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about eras, that's what you can get into and like kind of go through, because LeBron and Kobe did play kind of the same era, but
yeah,
it depends. But which was better, 8 or 24?
Ooh, this is where my bias creeps in. For me, it's 24, but that's biased just because I got to watch him more.
Yeah.
And his game was more mental than like physical. But I wish I could have seen 8 more, like just dunking on fools, crossing people over, playing with Shaq too.
Yep.
Like their numbers are very identical. I think each number has 10K points at least.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah, but just the way that 24 beat you, it wasn't just like, yeah, I'm gonna jump over you and cross you over and that's it. He's like, no, I'm gonna back you down. I'm gonna punish you mentally. I'm gonna hit you with 3 fakes and use my footwork against you. Like it was just so beautiful to watch. It's like really watching an artist like make a statue or a painting or whatever. It was great to watch.
Nah, I agree, Myles. For me, it was a no-brainer. 24. 8 was just super athletic. He was ready to take the league by storm. And, as we saw in, Kobe's viewing, what Mike had to share and what Kobe said to him, we saw how competitive Froby was. And I think like number 8 is just a kid who was hungry, eager to prove himself, and he wasn't going to back down from anybody. And, as he approached 24, what I always like to use to describe Kobe as 24 is a strategic killer. Because like Myles said, he has different ways to break you down. It's not just going to be a crossover. It's not a pull-up jumper in your face. It's a series of moves. And even if you counter every single one of them, he's going to hit you with that last one. And if he doesn't get the bucket, he'll get the foul and one, And, like Myles said, 8, I was able to watch him a lot, but I wasn't able to watch as much as 24 did. And what basically cemented this decision for me was that 09 series against the Nuggets when Melo and Kobe were just going back at it. You know what I mean? Like that was probably my favorite series to watch of the two championships that Kobe had, and it's just like to be able to see him compete defensively against Melo and still put up numbers on offense. And Melo, like, I'm not talking about LaMelo Ball for all the young people that watch and look at this. I'm talking about Carmelo Anthony, man. Like, Carmelo Anthony was a bucket back then, still is now, but even more so back then when he was with Denver. And, for Kobe to be able to compete and find ways on offense, to get it done, it's just, 24. It's just, to me, a strategic killer who put it all together, who's ready to destroy you in all shapes and form. And, this is why, like, I text Myles, I text my other friends who are Laker fans, and I even complain to Spencer when it comes for LeBron to win. Bro, like, where's that mentality? You know what I mean? And so, like, yeah, 24, the epitome of Black Mamba to me. Obviously, that's where the name came from when he changed numbers. But, yeah, it's just 24, man. 24 is always going to be better.
Yeah, and I chose 24 too. This might be a testament of how old we are.
Yeah.
But I grew up with 24, so that's what I'm choosing. And when you really look at the numbers, he was a better playoff performer as 24. And when it comes down to it, if you perform in the playoffs, I'm going to choose that because that's the most important thing. He could be a regular season performer, but as we've seen, playoffs is where it matters. And Kobe always put his money where his mouth is, He always came down and figured out a way to win,
Yeah.
And I think that's something that everyone can learn from because he was such an amazing player. And I hated him when he played because he killed the Warriors every time, let's be honest. And then after he retired, you learn to respect him because he did what he did best. He killed everyone, man. I'm sure almost every fan base hated him. But it's just the respect that you have for a guy that gave his all every single time down. And that's where respect comes from.
Yeah. One last thing before we move on, Spence. Like, in terms of like fan bases hating him and all that stuff, Celtics, Warriors, like, I'm sure a lot of people have some hatred for him. But, as we get on to the last topic and, celebrate his life, bro, like when me and Myles were talking about when he passed away, a lot of people, man, Lakers should win this. They should get this. They should get that.
Yeah.
But then, it didn't take long for the people to switch back to how they felt beforehand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, it's not just Warrior fans. It's not just Celtics fans. It's not just, any other fan. It's just, people who you want to set up a front. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I want to just say, man, if you're going to hate, please stay in one direction. You know what I mean?
Retweet.
It's like, yeah, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's just unfair, Same thing, for people who hate on Steph, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't hate on him. And then when he starts doing so well, backtrack on what you said, right?
Exactly.
So it's just similar in both ways. But, a lot of people were giving us, sympathy, like, oh man, you guys definitely deserve to win it. And as soon as we win it beccomes a Mickey Mouse ring, dude. Like,
you know, the Mickey and a Disney. those names make me laugh so much, dude. It's so funny.
Yeah, man. You know how it is. And like, same thing with the Warriors, bro. Like, don't say that they're not going to make the playoffs, and then once they make the playoffs, oh man, I already knew they were going to make the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's just it's stuff like that, bro. We see it all the time on social media, which is why I wanted to give a shout out to all the people watching, man. Hey, which is why I stopped talking, man. I gotta keep it quiet.
Good man.
You never know what teams can do, man. It can make me backtrack my words. For example, KCP. Oh my god.
Bullying works.
Bullying works, man.
He's been on fire lately.
Yeah.
Exactly why, bro. I have to go look at my history and delete tweets from last year, bro.
I mean, bro, look at Gordon Hayward.
Yeah.
Gordon Hayward's been amazing. He made us look so bad after that.
Yeah, dude. We called his contract being overpaid.
Yeah, dude.
He's gonna not perform, and I'm just like, man, backtrack, But
I wanted to go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, like, at the end of the day, like, yeah, it's all in good fun, and like we all talk our talk, but like, bro, it's just I see some people that I know, and like they just say one thing and just completely backtrack it, bro. You know what I mean? Like it's not even a joke. Like it's just it's crazy. And I understand like things change, narratives change when it comes to basketball, but learn to own up and take responsibility for it. You know what I mean? But that's sports for you. So yeah.
Exactly.
I wanted to bring up one last thing. I wanted to ask you guys what's like Kobe's legacy to you, not just basketball, just like overall. Because to me, it was like he played through all the injuries, he carried all the garbage teams. So like to me, it was just to keep chugging, like whether you're up good or down bad, like really down bad, like just keep going, because if you put the work in, the uh, the results you want will follow.
Yeah, man. Kobe's legacy is Jimmy Kimmel. Remember that episode? No, I'm just kidding. No, honestly, like for me, like all jokes aside, like as we seen and heard from past teammates, Kobe challenges you to be the best version of yourself, right? He wants to see what you're willing to do to achieve greatness. And he did that. He's shown that. And, I think that's something like I emulated in like my daily life and like, personally, like getting stuff done early, as hard as it sounds, like not procrastinating, just getting on top of your stuff. And like you said, Miles, like just never giving up. You know what I mean? Um, just working hard. And like Kobe was somebody that I saw, like, which is why his death hit me so hard, is because, I idolized him so much and tried to reciprocate the type of inspiration he gave me, you know what I mean? To always just work hard and everything that I do in life, whether that's work, school, or just being, a good individual overall. And it's crazy, right? Because we don't know this guy personally, but
Yeah.
he inspired us to do all these things. And it's just, to me, the one thing, like the legacy of Kobe to me is just never giving up. We see him get beat down, by the Pistons. They got dismantled defensively, and then you see them get beat down by the Celtics, but he didn't fret or cry. And I understand that he did demand for some trades. Almost went to the Bulls, almost went to the Clippers, according to Jerry West. But for the most part, whatever hand he was dealt with, he stuck with it. And I think that's an important life lesson there. Just because you don't get something that is more favorable to you, it doesn't mean that you should give up right then and there. So to me, that's what Kobe legacy meant to me.
I think his legacy to me was just the grit and determination, just
Yep.
the overall strive to be better. And I think like he really showed that no matter what hand you were dealt, just fight through it. Because like we've seen, like some of his teams are really bad, but he found a way to make it work.
Yeah.
And like coming from a Warriors fan, like his death hit me really hard too, because you realize that's an NBA legend that is gone. And
Yeah.
it's tough because, like you said, we didn't know him personally, but he affected our personal lives in a different way, in a different manner, I guess. And like his legacy is just like, there was so much more to him than just basketball. Like I think arguably he was en route to do much bigger things than he could have done in basketball, from winning awards off the court, from being like one of the best dads, being a great coach. And that's what it sucks. And it's just so sad that it was all cut so short,
Mm-hmm.
Tweet.
Back to the toughest question. Where were you and what were you doing when you heard about Kobe's passing?
I was just at home, getting ready for church actually, and then the news hit. Checked Twitter, talked to some people, and actually, I didn't even go into church. I stayed in the car the whole time. Cried for a good bit, because like he was my superhero, man. And
Yeah.
I don't want to be hella dramatic and be like, oh, it was like, I'm hit the most. because I'm not at all, obviously, but like a piece of you dies because just because you associate people or things to certain memories and feelings, and it was just devastating because it wasn't expected. Uh,
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to see from him in the past couple of years was just how he embraced the younger NBA players and just the younger generation.
Yeah.
Like in his farewell year, he would chat it up with younger dudes more than he ever did, just to impart his wisdom. And even after basketball, he would tell his stories and pass on his will through like coaching and stuff. So just the power he had to inspire, honestly, all age groups, but especially the younger groups, and the wider reach he had. It's just like hats off to him, salute to him,
Yeah.
because he just impacted honestly the whole world.
Yeah. Um, for me, the news broke so early, right? It was so early in the morning, but for me, I was actually at my rec league. So I I had just finished playing my first game. I had two games that day, and we were in the middle of my second game. And the guy doing book, good friend Mark, he was just like, "Dude, Kobe died." And I was like, "Dude, are you serious? Like, I'm trying to play, man. Like, why are you gonna say something like that? You know what I mean?" And he was just, "No, bro, TMZ reported." And I'm like, "Dude, TMZ, are you serious?" Like, and then like shortly after TMZ reported it, all the media outlets started reporting. CNN, LA Times, like all that stuff. And then I didn't finish the game because I was just so shocked. I was just so shocked that it happened. And like, I think nobody was ready to play. And, luckily we were fortunate enough to be winning that game. We didn't finish the game early. We just kept playing, but I didn't play the rest of the second half. I was just shook. And then like I had never cried for a celebrity or an athlete, but when I got to my car, I don't know why, I just started crying, dude. Like the tears started falling down, and then when I got home, like you know, you want to talk about bandwagon fans? Like my mom is one of the biggest bandwagon fans. When the Lakers are winning, she was a Lakers fan. When the Warriors are winning, she was a Warriors fan. But you know, she loved Kobe. She always used to think like he was so handsome and all that stuff. But like, yeah, when I got home, like, dude, like I hugged her and I just started crying. You would think, like, knock on wood, like somebody close to us. You know what I mean? I didn't know him personally, but it's just the impact that he had on me, and like everybody knows that, and which is why, like, I'm pretty sure, Myles, you can relate. Like a lot of people like checked up on me, like a lot of people that I haven't even spoken to, and yeah, and then like later that night, like, bro, I cried so many times. Like just thinking about it now, I cried in my car to my mom. I cried to my girlfriend, like, and it's just like it's crazy, bro. Like to think that it's about to be a year in light of everything that's going on. It's just, I still can't believe he's gone, and I don't think I'm ever gonna accept it, honestly. Like it's just insane. Like I can't even begin to describe how I feel. But yeah, I was just on my rec league, and that's how I found out.
Yeah, like I was on my way to my girlfriend's house because we were gonna go drive together or like leave together to go to Sacramento.
Mhm.
And so I remember on my way I was like, I gotta, notification police report. I'm like, not thinking about anything. It's early in the morning. I'm like, whatever, it's probably nothing. I get to her house, I park, and I look at him like, wait, what? And I see Kobe passed away, and I was just shocked and confused because and then I start going on Twitter. You look at it, you're like, it's fake. There's no
Yeah.
way. You think it's
Yeah.
fake.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out he passed away. And up until that moment, not even now, I don't think I've ever cried for a celebrity. And like just knowing like what Kobe meant to a lot of people, like it made me cry. Because like Kobe was someone you didn't know personally, probably never would know him personally, but to see the person he grew into and like who he was after the game. It's just like he was such an amazing person, and it hurt, man. Because like I'm not even a Lakers fan, and it hurt. Knowing like what it meant to Lakers fan, like it's insane, and it was tough because Kobe was such an amazing person, amazing player, and to lose Gigi too, I can't fathom what that's like. Because she was going to be such an amazing player for WNBA in college, wherever she was going to go. She was going to be amazing too.
Yeah.
100%.
No, and like Spence, like going on top of that, like I want to give a special shout out to Damian Lillard for killing the Lakers right after. That's exactly how Kobe would have wanted it, bro.
100%.
100%. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure, like, you know, on a lighter note, like, knock on wood, if it was on the other end, if Kobe was on the other end, like, oh, great, you know, unfortunately somebody died, but I still got to play. You know what I mean? And that's what he did to the Lakers, bro. 50.
Yeah.
That was crazy. But that's just some of the things that you won't ever forget, in my opinion, regardless whether or not you're a Laker or, you know, a Kobe fan, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't want to end the podcast on such a somber note. So I guess one thing I'll ask you guys, who do you think has that Kobe mentality in the league right now? I know he has a lot of disciples, but who do you see that Kobe like influenced the most? And this is taking into consideration Kyrie, Tatum, you know? So for me, I'll start off by saying D-Book. You know, him and Tatum are a toss-up for being one of the top Kobe disciples. And, you know, Kyrie's obviously his most famous student, in my opinion. But I just have those two. You see the side-by-side comparisons, Tatum and Kobe. You know what I mean? Almost the same height, same position. Pretty much has that mentality of, you know, breaking you down as well. Not a killer like Kobe was, but, you know, mid-range game, book it. No pun intended, man. Like this D-Book, he's one of the best Kobe disciples, in my opinion. And although Tatum has, you know, the fadeaways and the jab steps down, I think, to me, D-Book just has the slightest advantage.
Don't hate me for this, but I have to cop out. And honestly, I think it's beautiful. Like, I don't see one, like, singular person. I see bits and pieces of him, like, throughout.
Yeah.
So, like, as you mentioned, like in terms of his mentality and his just, like, his motor and his attitude, Russ for sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, I love Kyrie, and I know he was the closest to Kobe in terms of current players.
Yeah.
But sometimes he tries to be too smart for his own good. But he's growing from it. Like, I feel like what he's going through right now is what Kobe had to go through when he had to go through all those trials. So, and then you said Tatum and Booker. I also see like Luka. He'll like light you up and then smile and wink at you or tap you on the butt or something. And honestly, just outside of basketball, like I'm not trying to be hella corny or like cliche, but it's kind of how like after Jordan played, people tried to copy, like straight up copy Jordan.
Yeah.
But now I see it as people not trying to be the second Kobe, but adding bits and pieces of Kobe to themselves, which I think is great because they can be their own people and at the same time keep his legacy alive and strong.
Yeah. Agreed.
But if you had gun to my head, if I had to pick one player, it'd be Kyrie for me.
Yeah, I think I agree. Kyrie I think they play very similarly, other than, you know, Kyrie is very flashy. But I think he has that mentality like Kobe. But Jason Tatum has the play style, so does Book. But I think like someone I want to add is Giannis. Yeah, Kobe's death hurt Giannis a lot. And I think that was something to look at because it showed like Giannis re-signing kind of tells me he has that will to win, but he also has that loyalty too. And I think that's something that Kobe had throughout his whole NBA career. Even though he did request trades, he stuck with them even after they didn't grant it. You know, Giannis shows that, and he shows that winning attitude. I think it's a matter of time before Giannis wins, but eventually he's going to get there. But I think Kyrie and probably Giannis for me, in terms of his attitude at least.
Love it.
Yeah,
But-
man.
Wait, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I agree.
Yeah.
Let's not forget the biggest Kobe disciple of them all, the GOAT, man, Kyle Kuzma.
You're right. 100%. 100%.
Never
Hey,
a moment that goes by.
Hey, man, to be fair, they had a dinner. All right, they had a dinner. He got to know Kobe. Too bad he just thinks that he's Kobe a little bit too much. You know what I mean? No, but honestly, like, no disrespect to Kuz, but at least he was able to pick his brain a little bit. You know what I mean? And have a conversation with him and whatnot. And the whole world knows how much I feel about Kyle Kuzma.
We know you
But-
love him.
My favorite Laker. But he's another guy that you can put alongside. And I just really wanted to say, like, I liked what Myles had to say, was because, like, you really can't pick one legitimate player to be that disciple for Kobe, even though you see so much comparisons in these guys' games. But that's just the beauty of it all. He inspired so much, all of us. And if we're not professional athletes, think about, like, what he did to these professional athletes, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That he's had conversations with. But yeah, like, you can add Kuzma to that list of people that took things Kobe did well and try to add their own flavor to it. So now that I think about it, like, you're right, Myles. Like, you just can't pick one sole guy, even though also Kyrie was not strongest, but, like, the closest friend Kobe had in this new generation. You know what I mean? We saw it, the USA practice and what happened there. And I think that's what started it. But yeah, man, it's just a good way to celebrate him as we approach closer to the 1 year, celebration.
Yeah, and before we leave and, like, end this, big shout out to Pal. What Pal has done for the Bryant family has been amazingly powerful and, like, just amazing all around. So huge shout out to Pal.
Gotta love Uncle Pal.
Yeah,
Uncle
he's been
Pal.
great for them.
Yeah, I know. Te amo, for real.
But that's gonna do it for our 30th podcast. I might break this into 2 because it went a little long, but that's fine. I think this was one of my favorite podcasts to record. And huge shout out to you guys for coming on. This was a lot of fun, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Spencer, as always.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure hanging out with y'all.
Yeah, it's always fun. Always fun. But be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Our links are down in the description, so check us out. But catch you guys in the next one.